It looks like we are live. It is, is today Wednesday? Yeah, Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019. We're going to be diving into our third part of our series on getting unstuck. So really quickly, I'm going to share this on to my other pages and whatnot. If you'd like to invite some friends, family, coworkers to join us, you can share it to them, start a watch party, tag them in this, whatever the need is, and we will get this going. And I'm just going to quickly share this on my other pages. While I do that, why don't you say hello and why don't you type in, I don't know, can you type gifts in? If you can put a gift in the comments, put the funniest gift you've seen lately. If you can't put a gift in the comments, type in the best joke you've heard lately. I need some good jokes to recycle later on. And I just have 2 quick shares to do here, and then we'll be ready to go. We'll do this one. And then updates should be a little quicker this time. I think I condensed it down, hopefully. Last one. We'll be ready to go in 18 seconds. I'm a little behind. Well, actually, I'm not even a little behind. I am way, way, way behind with my day-to-day. I went to Costco to do my annual trip to Costco, and I'm still moving pretty gingerly with my back, so that in itself slowed me down. But I have an old cell phone, and it's starting to show its age, and so I need to get a new one. And Costco, you can now get them at Costco, and I like to do my business at Costco. I like to buy stuff from Costco. I'm a Costco fan for sure. So I went there to talk about getting it. I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to. And I ended up talking to one guy forever, just going through all the things. Long story short, I was at Costco today for the better part of well over 3 hours. And now I got the new phone. I got to set it up, got to figure out how to do it. There's all this crap on there. When I use my phone, I have it set up to where I have everything taken off of it. No notifications, nothing comes through. I only utilize it if I'm actually logging into it. But now these new ones are set up where everything's trying to get you to log into it more, and I don't want that. So I have some homework I have to do later today. I don't know why it's not putting comments up over here. Let's see who's on here. For some reason, it's not showing me on this side. Oh, there we go. Hey, Kathy, Linda, what's up? Rosie. Hey, Rosie, how you doing? So, a couple quick updates. Okay, Summit. Have any of you registered for the Light Up Your Life Summit by chance, or Light Your Fire Summit? If you haven't yet, that's going to be a free summit with myself and along with several other people who are going to be talking on various topics. You can register there. It's completely free. They'll deliver all the interviews right to your inbox, and I think those are going to start going out next week. TED should be released at the end of this week, beginning of next week. So I won't go too much into it yet, again, because we've already spent a lot of time on it the first 2 days, and I'm going to probably spend a hell of a lot of time on it when it does finally get released. So just forewarn you, you're going to probably get exhausted from hearing me talk about TED. But just keep your eyeballs peeled. If you want to do a TED watch party, if you want to make sure I get messaged when it first comes out, just put TED in the comments, and I'll be circling back around when that comes out. Oh, cool. Kathy and Linda both registered. Awesome. Yeah, we need some TED icons or something like that. Let's see, what else do we have? New Thursday time, just a reminder, and I will send out. So if you're on the email reminder list, I will send you a reminder shortly later today about the new time that's going to be on Thursday. So Thursday, we're moving our time from, I think it was 4 p.m. Pacific time to noon Pacific time. I just have a couple conflicts. It's going to be more efficient with my schedule, and especially after today losing most of the morning and afternoon dealing with this phone stuff, I need to open up that time for other things. So I'm going to move our Facebook Live to noon tomorrow. And if you aren't on the email registration, use that link I just posted. We will also be, not this week, but the following week, switching Fridays when we have them to a Q&A. And that was what the unanimous vote was. So when you have ideas, suggestions, questions to submit for Q&A, ways to make it efficient. We tried to do a Q&A before on the page, but what was happening is it was just getting so hard to get people to comment on it because Facebook was burying it in the content. And so I would really love to do a Q&A. I think it would be awesome to stimulate conversation. I think we could all learn so much from each other. But that'll start next week. And there is still one strategy session. I opened up one more spot left. So if any of you want to grab that, you can use the link and I will post that towards the end, but just keep that in mind. Yes, I like the champagne emojis for Ted. We can recycle those. I'll share the champagne emoji one with you, Kathy. Or if you're going to be gracious enough to share it with me, I should say. Okay, so let's dive in. This is part 3 of our 5-part series on getting unstuck. Have the first two been helpful? Just some real quick feedback on that. And also, does anybody have any questions about the Monday and Tuesday lives? Was everything covered? Did anything make sense? Do you need me to clear anything up? Hey, Chris, good to see you on here. Samantha, what's up, Samantha? Any questions at all about those? Oh, and before we jump in today and why I'm waiting for you to type in questions, just can I say thank you to each and every one of you? We have had such awesome conversations. Yesterday, we actually ran out of time and I didn't get a chance to respond to all the comments and questions. And this is what my vision is for these, is just to grow and have these really cool communities where we can come together and we can learn together, we can support one another. So not only was it so cool because there's so many awesome comments, awesome questions that stimulated more beyond that, but I saw so many of you going back and liking and commenting on other people's and making them feel supported. So I just, you don't have to do that. And I really appreciate that you do it. And because not only do you help the community grow, but you help me get this message out to more people. And it's absolutely awesome that you're taking the time to do that. And you're making the effort. So thank you so much, those of you who are doing that. Huge thanks to all of you who have been asking questions, who have been contributing to these. It's awesome. I see some of you tagging friends in this, sharing it on your pages. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And remember to just keep liking, subscribing, all those types of things, and we'll keep this train rolling. Now, without further ado, let's dive into today. If you're stuck, wait, where are my pen notes? Okay. If you're stuck, there's hope. This is how to get unstuck. So we talked a little bit about what being stuck is and the number one reason why most people get stuck. We talked about the no BS and what it costs you to stay stuck. And I shared some personal stories with you on that, as well as some stories of others. And today we're going to get a little bit into the how and how to get unstuck. So if you'll recall, I was sharing with you a story the other day about my dad and when my dad passed away and how I'd been so stuck in my way of viewing him. I'd always seen him largely through my mom's eyes and the eyes that I'd been taught to see him through. And those were obviously very biased and very limited and a very filtered information, and which is how biases are formed, right? We're not taught that we can look at people from different perspectives in school, or we're not taught to recognize that everybody has different childhoods, different upbringings, different belief systems, different values than we do. We're just shoved out in there, and we have to take that important time to figure out things like the Great Gatsby and the green light at the end of the fear. It was a very traumatic time, my sophomore year in high school, and got into some debates that I was basically told, just accept it and be quiet. And I just really couldn't understand why the fuck we were spending so much time going over this green light. But anyways, I digress. So there's no time for us to understand this and how we actually form perceptions or biases or how we learn about people. And what we get instead is the stories we tell ourselves about who people are in our life, right? And there's always a because. So my dad, much of my story was my dad didn't love me because my dad didn't love me like my mom did because he didn't make the effort to fill out birthday cards. My dad didn't love me because he didn't take the time to wrap Christmas presents. My dad didn't love me because he didn't call me as much as my mom did, right? There was a lot of that. So we always make this statement of something, of what we believe, and there's a because afterwards. I didn't go for the job I really wanted because I didn't start my exercise routine because I didn't quit drinking because I wasn't able to quit drinking because. So there's the statement, which is usually our limiting belief, our belief systems, right? That's the number one thing, reason why we get stuck. And there's the because, the cause, the reason why, the justification, the excuse, whatever language it wants to be, about what fuels that BS, that belief systems. So are you with me so far? So we have this belief system, our limiting belief, and then we have the cause, the thing that we're going to use to help fuel it, the fuel that we add to the fire. And for my dad, in that narrative I had with him in my relationship with him, it was very much, he didn't love me because of this. Because of the cards, because he didn't call, he didn't seem to take an interest in things, because he'd rather watch sports than play, games with me on the weekend, or whatever the case may have been. And for many of us, that's the narrative of our lives, right? We have these belief systems, we have these limiting beliefs that have got us stuck. And there's a part of us that would want to get unstuck, but we don't even know if we can, or we don't even know how. And it's gotten to be just the way things are. With my dad, that was how it always had been. And I assume that's how it always would be. I never once thought that maybe I could change my relationship and how I related to my dad. I never once thought of looking at my dad not as my dad and my expectation of him, but as the human being that he was, flawed and struggling and having his own challenges through life and his own struggles through life. Because I wasn't taught that. And so I didn't know. And most of us don't realize that. Most of us aren't aware of it. It's just kind of how life is, isn't it? So there's a few things that I want to talk on that really helped change and get me unstuck. And these are some of the things that I'll teach to clients to help them get unstuck. And we're just going to kind of go over the surface stuff, because I don't want to get into deeper processes with it on here, because what I don't want to do is I don't want some of you to start going through it and then you get stuck in the process and then it compiles the stuckness. If this is stuff, if you do want to dive deeper in it, I'd recommend reaching out. We can do a formal coaching program. It's absolutely awesome. It will be completely transformative, transform your life, transform how you relate to the stuckness, and get you unstuck and make you unstoppable. So what I do want to do, though, is give you some tangible tools that you can start using and you can apply right away to any situation that you may be stuck in. And then I'll open it up to some questions. And then you can give me some specific examples of areas that you feel stuck in, and maybe we can troubleshoot a few of them on here. So sound good? The first thing you can do when you really want to, if you really want to get unstuck, is you can change your story. You can change your story. See, what kept me stuck? If you look at human beings, right? Everything we know about our history, about our origin, or about our family is all based on story. I was just watching the show the other night, and it's called, God, what the hell is it called? Frontier? Have any of you ever seen it? Frontier, it's got Khal Drogo in it from Game of Thrones. Has anybody seen Frontier? It's about the Hudson Bay Trading Company, and then these other guys. Khal Drogo plays this guy who used to be an apprentice with them, but now he's all rogue, and they try to make him out to be this monster guy, but he's really the good guy, and the Hudson Bay Company's the bad guy. Those kinds of things. In American history, it's usually the British that are bad guys. And just making jokes to my British friends who are on here. And I'm sure in many of your histories, those of you international Americans are probably the bad guys too in some of them. And that's okay, because to the point, right? It's stories. It's the stories that we're told that we learn, and how we learn and how we accept things. And I was sitting there watching the show and thinking, I studied history. I was always interested in history. But here I am watching the show and the costumes and the setups and the sets and thinking, so much of that is what I'm basing on. So my facts are limited scope of history that I understand. I'm taking these images, the story that's being portrayed on the screen, even though it's, this fiction thing, but maybe it's loosely based on something, I don't know. And then taking from that, and I'm forming this story in my head about history, about American history, about American traders and British traders trying to figure out this whole fur trade and all these types of things. So our history is very much, our stories that we tell ourselves are very much influenced externally, right? So our parents, our teachers, our aunts, our uncles, our grandparents, our external peer groups, they'll pipe in our ear, the news will say something. And then what we do is we take that information in, and based off of our beliefs and values, we start to form our own story around it. And so my story was very much around my dad and how he was this way because of what my mom said, or because of when he would do things, I would always evaluate it against the information my mom had given him. So what we can do is we can change our stories. How many times has history changed? Right? I mean, really think about how many times. I remember as a kid that you used to celebrate Columbus Day. It was this huge holiday, and there was even a rhyme that went something like, in 1492, God, look, I can still remember it. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and did something so that we can all stay home from school. You know, there was like a little kid's rhyme that you did because he was such a celebrated figure about discovering the new world and whatnot. And now, if you talk about, oh boy, it's Columbus Day, you risk getting tarred and feathered because there's all these information that falls out about Columbus that maybe he wasn't such a nice guy. I remember going to the Colosseum in Rome and just thinking it was such a cool experience to have, because I was thinking of Gladiator, the movie, and how Maximus came back and, really put the honor back in Rome and all these types of things. And then I was talking with it one time with somebody and saying, God, I don't ever want to go there. And I go, why wouldn't you want to go to the Colosseum? And they were saying, well, because there was just basically this mass genocide there. People were forced to fight to the death against their will. Animals are slaughtered, all these types of things. And there's this very dark history about it, right? But depending on what story you're told about it, depends on the reality you're going to experience. So recognize that with stories, what's really great about them is these stories are fueling our beliefs. These stories are fueling our limiting beliefs, our belief systems. And at any given time, we can change the story. Right? At any given time, we can change the story. We can change the story of our history. We can change the story of who we are. I was listening to this interview earlier, and it was about a guy who, when he was 12 years old, he went completely blind. When he was born, he had some sort of rare ocular cancer, and they had to do emergency surgery on him. At 1 year old, they took one of his eyes away. So he could still see out of one eye, but he's blind on the other one. He had cancer come back something like 8 or 9 times before he turned 10, 11, 12. 8 or 9 times cancer came back, and they had to go through and do radiation. He'd gotten to the point where it was just, that was all he had known. Once a year, his entire life, he was going to be in the hospital and doing chemo, doing radiation to try to fight for his sight. And it came back, and finally they said, there's nothing we can do. If we don't basically remove your eye, it could travel to your brain, then you're dead. And he said, here he is, 10, 11, 12 years old, going through this whole experience of, gosh, this is going to be my last sunset I ever see. This is going to be the last time I ever see my father. This is going to be the last time I ever see my mom. Going through this whole thing, and then went in, had the surgery. He woke up, and then he said, he had his frustrations, and he still does. And then he decided, he said, okay, this is the reality I have now. What story am I going to tell myself? Am I going to tell myself a story about I'm going to be blind and all the things I can't do? Or I'm going to tell myself a story about I may not be able to see, but that doesn't take away my vision. Now, what's remarkable about this young man is he's actually gone on, and he's I think a senior at USC, which is a really well-known college in the United States. He's a kicker on the football team, and USC has a major football team. He plays golf, and he shoots his average is like a 70, whatever that's called in golf, which is pretty good. He's just a really talented person. He was able to learn calculus, and he would memorize all the equations in his mind because he couldn't see the numbers, but he would just memorize them. He would learn it because he realized he didn't have his sight to rely on anymore, so he chose to tell a new story. And his story was not going to be one of what he couldn't do. His story is going to be one of exploring and figuring out what he can do. So if you want to get unstuck, you can start with changing your story, because there's a story you tell yourself. There's a story you tell yourself about why you're stuck. And it's that story that keeps you stuck. Make sense? Number 2, I see a couple of our British friends making comments about British American relations. Oh God, I love it. So number 2, we can then change and eliminate limiting beliefs. We got to change and eliminate our limiting beliefs. So as much as we can do with our story and change our story, if we still have limiting beliefs that are fueling that story, those little suckers are going to be dug in and resistant and resilient to being eliminated. This is where I talk about is you have to get in and get to the roots. There's a root cause. There's a root of what formed that limiting belief. There's a root that what formed your belief systems about why you believe what you believe. And it's in that root that you must get down and get to. Because if you just chop off the top of the weed, we all know what happens, right? The weed disappears, but a couple days later, it comes back and it brings two of them. And if you heard that beep, I apologize. I still don't know how to work this new phone, so it's making all sorts of noises. Number two is, so we have to get to the root to kill the weed. Well, we have to get to the root of what causes the limiting beliefs. We have to get to the root of what fuels those belief systems. And it's going to usually be something that's going to have an event that happens, something in childhood. Maybe it's just something that happened a few months ago and we didn't even realize it. Many of these things are unconscious, meaning that we're not thinking of them all the time. We're not even aware of them, but they're operating, they're executing the computer program. Right. So as an example, we all use our phones and we open up an app. Many of you clicked onto Facebook here, right? And you opened up an app, maybe on your phone, you logged in on your computer. And what we see is you just click a button and then Facebook pops up. You just click join the live and then it jumps in. But there's all this software, there's all these programs, there's all this code that's running behind the screen, behind the scenes that we don't even see that makes this kind of experience possible. So much the same way as our unconscious mind, it's kind of like the code. It's everything happening behind the scenes so that we get to have the conscious experience that we do. Does this make sense? And in our limiting beliefs or the belief systems that we have to work through to get unstuck, they're those pieces of code in the programming that are broken that we need to go back and change, fix, or eliminate altogether to get the program to run smoothly. Because right now what it does is it acts as a virus in our programming. A virus in the sense of it's not necessarily going to make us sick, but a virus in the sense of it causes us to not operate at our optimal potential, right? We're not fulfilled. We're not maybe successful as we want to be. We're not experiencing the level of joy and love in our relationships as we could because we find ourselves stuck and struggling. There's a piece of programming, there's a piece of code that's broken. So we have to get in and get that weed out. You all with me so far? Is this making sense? Is this helpful? Yes, no? Yes, gosh. And I promise you this thing will not be dinging and making noises after the next time we're on here. That's on my to-do list right after this. Cool. So then the third thing that we can do with this is when we're talking about getting unstuck, if we change your stories, let's assume we change your story. And let's assume that we get in and we do the work with our belief systems and we dig in and we fix that programming, we prune the weeds, so to speak. The third thing we have to do is we have to start taking new actions that support the new story, new actions that support the new beliefs. Because if we do the work, but then we do nothing, right? You could have an architect draw plans for your most amazing house, your dream home. But if you take no action to have it built, you're just going to sit there with a piece of paper that shows the plans. I've been talking about getting a new phone for a while. My old one's archaic dinosaur. It's not taking as good of photos. It breaks down half the time. The video turns off. And getting one with a better camera so I could do more video work and stuff. And I never took the action to do it, right? See, nothing changes without the action to support it. So if we're doing the inner work of changing our stories and changing our belief systems and getting rid of the limiting beliefs, we have to take new actions to support our new way of living. If you decide that you want to exercise and lose weight and eat healthier, right, and you don't take an action to support that, then what's going to happen? You're probably not going to lose weight and you probably won't eat healthier. You have to get up, put your gym clothes on, exercise. You have to walk or go to the store and buy healthy stuff, get vegetables and fruits and lean meats as opposed to chips and crackers or whatever. Well, there's some pretty good chips and crackers out right now. I do enjoy them from time to time. But you know what I mean? So you have to take actions that support your new way of being. If you don't, nothing will change. You'll feel better for a moment. And this is why I say every single time that we do these lives, take some sort of action. If you're going to do a strategy session, take the action, do the strategy session. I encourage you to, sometimes I'll say, make a declaration. What's the action step you're going to take? And I don't just say that for you just to hear myself talk. I say it because I know from working with thousands of people from all over the world that it's that when we make a step towards the new way we want to be, when we take new actions that support that, that's when change happens. See, change doesn't happen if we do nothing. It just feels good. I don't want to just show up here. We talk a little bit, you listen to it and say, oh, that was a good one, or yeah, he's a little off today, or whatever. And then you do nothing with it, because what ends up happening is you just keep showing up and listening to these, but we're not progressing. I am grateful for you here, but what I want to see is I want to see you all making progress. I want to see you taking the steps you need to take to support yourselves. I want to see you taking the steps that you need to take to implement these changes, to change the story, to change your belief systems, so that you can really get unstuck, become unstoppable, and live the extraordinarily awesome and fulfilled life that you're capable of. Which you can do. At any given time, we all hold the pen. If I had a pen for dramatic effect, which I just happen to do, we all hold the pen to our life story, and we are all the author of our story, despite what somebody else may tell you. People may try to tell you, and there's a vested interest for it, that you can't control what you feel, you can't control what you think, that somebody else needs to adjust how they are so you don't feel how you do. Nothing could be further from the truth. You're the author of your story. At any given time, if you don't like how the story's going, you can write a new chapter. You can begin anew. You can begin fresh. You can erase the ink that doesn't serve you anymore. You can change how you relate to it. You can change how you look at it. So knowing that you have that capability, that potential, and that power, I encourage you all to pick up your pens. And maybe this would be a good homework for you to do, is declare in here, what's one action step you're going to take? What's an old story that you've had before? What's an old story that has limited you? What's an old story that you've been stuck in? Write that out. And then write out, what's the new story you're going to tell yourself? You're the author, right? So you pick up your pen. What's the new story you want to tell yourself? With my dad, my old story was, my dad didn't love me. He didn't care as much because he didn't do the things with the birthday cards, the Christmas cards. My new story I chose to tell myself is that my dad, that just wasn't how he was raised. He wasn't a natural at it. It wasn't where he was default to. And so the fact that he made the effort to do it when he did, that spoke volumes, because he had to work so hard to do something that he wasn't naturally good at. That was the new story I told myself. So what was the actions I could take? I would sit there and reflect on moments in time with my dad where memories I had where my dad was really trying to show love in his own way. It wasn't the way I was taught or trained to look for love, and it wasn't the way I would necessarily show love, but it was how my dad had tried to do it. And so as I went back and revisited these memories, I allowed myself to feel love with my dad. I allowed myself to feel connected with my dad. I allowed myself to feel close to my dad. I couldn't take actions for him being here because he had passed away at this point, but I could take actions that supported the relationship I wanted to have in his death. And I feel like I have a very close and solid and loving relationship with my father now. His relationship that has brought me here in front of you all today. So those were what I did. So I encourage you all is to share on here. What is something you've been stuck in? What is an old story you've told yourself? Part 2, what is a new story you want to tell yourself? And part 3, what is one action step? What is one action you're committed to taking now? Between now and maybe tomorrow, the next time we speak, to really get unstuck and become unstoppable. And then what can happen is everybody on here can support each other. They can come back and check in on you and say, hey, what are you doing? How are you doing with this? Have you made progress on this? For example, if your action step is contacting me and taking me up on a strategy session, you could put in there, I am going to fill out Jesse's strategy session form, or I am going to message him right after this, or email him right after this and talk to him about it, getting on his calendar. For some of you, it's just say your story is about being stuck in your health, being stuck in your fitness. And your new story could be I'm the creator of my health. I'm the creator of my fitness. I'm not going to settle for this anymore. And your action step might be to, reach out to the local gym. Hey, how you doing? What's it cost to come down and try out a class? If you've been stuck in your relationship for a while and you've been telling yourself, well, this is as good as it gets. Your new story, you might say, is you say, you know what? I've allowed myself to settle, and I'm not willing to settle anymore. From this point forth, I'm committed to being the most awesome, amazing, and loving partner possible for myself and for my significant other. And the action step I'm going to take today, or the action step I'm going to take tomorrow, is this. I'm going to buy flowers for my significant other and just put, because I love you. I'm going to plan a date night. I'm going to, whatever that is for you. So declare that, put it out there, put it out into the world, because it forces you out of that. It forces you out of the story, because if you do nothing, what happens? That's how you got stuck in the first place, right? It's because you just stayed silently and suffering in the own story. So give yourself the opportunity, the freedom to express that. And number two, you open yourself up to this whole global community on here of people who could potentially help and support you in seeing that into reality. This is why I've been telling you all about my goal for the TED Talk, to get it in front of 1 million people. Because by me speaking it out there, I want to send it out to you, because I don't know, maybe some of you have a huge Facebook page that has 20 million fans on there, and they'll go do it. Maybe some of you know people who are, looking for speakers at certain things, people who are curating those kinds of events that need TED there's all sorts of things. But what I do know is, so I don't know that, but what I do know is if I keep it hidden inside, then nobody knows. It just sits there with me. But if I share it with you all, if I put it all out there, then there's a much greater chance that the people out there around the world, we can support each other in making these things happen, and achieving them. And it just holds me now to a higher standard, because now I've set the goal, I've spoken into existence to all of you. I have something to focus on. Does that make sense? All right. Was this helpful today? What questions do you all have? Questions, comments, and was this helpful? And I'm a little concerned. I haven't seen one person declare their action step. Let's see, what do we have? American actors doing insulting British accents. That sounds... Cool. Questions? Anyone have questions? Remember, do not allow the opportunity to ask questions to go away. Declare, take action. These make me a little unsettling when we just get done talking about taking action and putting things out there, and I don't see anybody taking action and putting anything out there. So I'll give you, so helpful, awesome. Good to see you on here again, Hope. I'll give you all 15 seconds. Well, I'll recap really quickly the announcements, and then we'll see if there's some questions that come in from then. So first of all, strategy session link. There's only one spot left for this week. If you want it, you can use that link right there. Reminder, register for the summit that I'm going to be speaking at. It's completely free. They email it to you. You get my interview, as well as I think there's 15 or 20 other people. Quite a few of you already said you did. I threw that link in there, and I'll throw it up one more time. Throw it up. That just sounds... I'm going to place it up there. I'm not going to throw it up. Here's that link. Tina. Hey, Tina. Action step to be a better listener and a lot less judgmental. Awesome. It's fantastic. Let's see. The live tomorrow is going to be noon Pacific time. So we had to change the time. It'll be noon Pacific time. Be sure to sign up for the email reminders, because I'm going to email you all that information. If you're not on there, you may not see it. It may not show up on Facebook. But just as you didn't hear me say it 10 times already, we're going to meet at noon Pacific time for the live tomorrow. And then I think it's noon or 12:30 on Friday. And then Fridays going forward, the vote was unanimous. We'll start opening it up into some sort of Q&A. I'm still trying to figure out how best to facilitate that, especially if we're a little shy typing in the lives. Because what I want to do is I want to have questions already in, so I can log in and start answering those questions. And that way we're not having to do okay, does anybody have any questions? And then it's just me sitting here going, and then you all sitting there listening, waiting for somebody to ask a question. I want to make sure we have 3 or 4 core questions that we can go into it focusing on, and then that kind of stimulates this conversation from there. And then lastly, TED should be releasing my TED Talk by the end of this week, beginning of next week. I am super excited to share it with all of you. And if you haven't already commented on one of the other lives and said you want to see the TED Talk, just go ahead and put, please send me TED or whatever on here. And I'll message you personally when it comes out to make sure you have it. Again, my goal is to to get out in front of 1 million people. And so one of the ways I'm committed to doing this is just making sure that anybody who says they want to have it, in the past, I would just rely on, okay, I'm going to put it on Facebook and share it on Facebook, and then everybody will see it. Well, all of you follow me on Facebook, and how many of you see all my posts? Not many, unless you're going through liking, subscribing, see first, and then even then it's getting buried in all the stuff out there. So I really am committed to achieving this goal because I believe so strongly in the message and the difference it can make in people's lives. And so to help make that happen, I want to make sure I personally reach out to everybody who says they want to see it and ensure that they have a copy of it. So, okay, let's see. How do we overcome fear? There we go. Good question, Hope. How do we overcome fear? Hope asks, how do we overcome fear of taking the first step? Whatever the goal may be, new job, etc. Great question. So one way to do that, Hope, and for everybody else who might share this, because incidentally, any of you can relate to Hope's question, is we have to change our story about the fear. See, the fear exists because it exists in a reality that we've allowed ourselves to make to be real, right? Fear, there's many acronyms for fear, but one of the best ones I like is, false evidence appearing real. And so what we've done in here is we've constructed the scenario, and we've curated evidence and ignored all the other stuff that says this is what could happen, this is what would happen. And then we make that such a real possibility that we literally put ourselves in a position where we're almost frozen to take action because our whole reality is now being constructed on this false reality, false evidence appearing real. So what we need to do is we need to get some sort of emotional leverage to create more forward movement for us. Emotion is always going to produce motion. And the reason that there's not motion, which we could argue is emotion, towards the thing that you want, leaving the job, going after, going for something new, is because we put so much emotion in the fear of what could happen, the fear of the worst case scenario. If we know that we're driven by fear, and we know that we're driven by the worst case scenario, then we need to create a more worst case scenario alternative that makes that one that we're fearful of seem really lucrative. One of the examples we could do is this. If you have a family, if you have kids, and so Hope, I know Hope, and so I'm going to use this as an example just to personalize it with her. So Hope, one thing that you could do, and one thing anybody else can do, is you can start looking at that and saying to yourself, because I know that you're a loving mom, you love your family, and you could say, you know what? When I look at my kids, what I want for them more than anything is I want them to be fearless. I want them to go after their dreams. I want them to go after their goals. I want them to go after their hopes. The last thing I want to ever see them do is settle for something that doesn't fulfill them, that's something that's not meaningful to them. And I know from all that I've learned, all that I've seen raising my children, and from talking to Jesse before and him reminding me right now, I know that my kids are sponges. They learn from us. Not only do they learn from us, but they learn to model our behaviors. And that much of how my child is going to be as a young adult, as an adult in their life, is going to largely be from what they extrapolate from me and how they see in me act and live my life. And then they're going to take that blueprint and mold it into theirs. And because I recognize that, the last thing I want to do is I want to give them a blueprint for how to settle in life, a blueprint for not going after the things they want, because I don't want them to live that. I've lived that long enough for all of us, and I don't want them to do that. So because of that, and because I love my children so much, I love my children more than I love the story of the fear that holds me back, I'm going to take that step, not for me, but for them. I'm going to take that step not for me, but for them and for their kids when they have kids, for my grandchildren, because I want to be the example for all of them of what could be possible when we step out of the darkness of fear and we step into the light of our potential and possibility. If you did that, Hope, something like that, do you think that would make a difference in your ability to take that first step? Great question, too. Put the Q&A up day before. Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Violet. I want to try to figure out if it would be better to put it in here, because, see, the problem is when we post it into Facebook, it doesn't always get seen. And Violet, you remember when we were doing the Q&As before and we were doing them over the lives, when we first started out, it was great, but then what happened is it was getting hard for anybody to find it and access it because the thing, whatever it is, would bury it. So I want to try to figure out a way that's going to be the most effective to get in front of people. Maybe we send it out to the email list too for people to do it. That was so good. That was awesome. Oh, cool. Awesome, Hope. Double high five to you. And Hope to like just thank you so much for asking that question. Because I mean, and I don't know if you can tell, I have goosebumps right now. That is the question that is probably on most of our hearts and most of our minds. And it's a question that sometimes we don't realize that we need to ask, because in the moment of feeling stuck, we don't necessarily have the language for it. So I really thank you so much for being brave enough to ask that question. And I know that it's one that probably everybody at some point in their life has confronted or is maybe trying to confront right now. And you've given them all, as well as yourself, a platform to go off of. So please keep us posted, because I want to see you take those actions. And I want to hear about the new way of seeing it. But it starts with that story, Hope, and you tell yourself that story. Absolutely amazingness can happen. Kathy, how to choose which stuck to start on first? Well, you can always totally relate to hopes. We can always do the any, mini, miny, mo. But I think that's a good question, because a lot of us, we're going to be in multiple places in our lives where we might be stuck. We might be stuck in our business. We might be stuck in our relationships. We might be stuck in our health. We might find ourselves, it's kind of like this weird, bizarre game of Twister, where instead of when you're all contorted trying to go green, blue, red, yellow, and you're trying to lose your balance, instead what you find yourself is it's cement. So here's relationship and I can't get my arm out of here. Here's career and I can't get my arm out of here. And the answer to that, Kathy, is really, you got to tune into this. Our brain, our mind will tell us all these, again, stories about why we should this, why we shouldn't that. And that's part of what fuels the stuck state. One of the things I always encourage all my clients to do is, when it comes time to confront and we have multiple things, is just to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and then just ask your unconscious mind. And it's something as simple as, and you do this silently, where do I begin? What's first? And in that split second of an instant, there will be a voice. It will be faint, or it might be a feeling that will tell you what to do. Honor that, act on that. See, what happens for most of us is we hear that voice, we get that feedback about what we should do, and then our mind really goes, dirt, 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 nope, and starts talking us out of it and talking us into something else. And so the answer that we know we need to act on, we shove it aside and we put it on the shelf and say, okay, I'll deal with this later. Maybe it's crazy, maybe it's ridiculous, no way I could do it. And we go for something else, whatever comes up here. And that's going to usually be the safe play. That's going to be the excuse. That's going to be the thing that gets us passed by. So do that little check-in with yourself, and it'll open up. I wish I'd met you earlier in my life. I'm so grateful that we've met now. Q&A group. Yeah, I want to keep it, though. I want to keep it out here because I want other people to be able to access that. So we'll have to think about it. I appreciate the suggestions, Violet. I know there's got to be a way that we could do this. Google Doc. Yeah, Google Doc might be a good one, too. We could put a Google Doc together, and it could just be an ongoing thing that people could input on, and then we can maybe go on there and just randomly pull a few questions. Actually, that might not be a bad idea. And then there's an ongoing thing with that. Personally, I like to work on anything that someone else says I can't do. That's awesome. You don't need to apologize for tenacity like that. I appreciate the enthusiasm about typing it in, and the grammatical errors that came with that. I do it all the time. I get so excited about typing stuff, and then, oh, what the hell is I even saying there? So I think we'll bid it adieu with that. Was today helpful? Yes. So huge thank you to all of you who have been here, who have tuned in live, who have watched. Extra big thanks to all of you who have been putting the emojis up, who have been commenting, those of you who have been circling around, acknowledging each other, who have shared this, who have tagged friends in this. Thank you so much. It just helps more people have access to this content. A huge thank you to those of you who are courageous enough to ask questions. Be bold, put in your story, do your homework, share what your story is, share what your new story is going to be, and share what actions that you're going to take today. If you want to take advantage of that last strategy session I have this week, you can use the link, fill out the form, message me. I would love to get you on the calendar and really dig in deep and talk about how to get you from where you are to where you want to be and create an absolutely epic 2019 together. So until tomorrow, remember at noon, 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Greenwich Median, and I don't know what else it is on the other ones. Carpe diem, seize the day, seize the moment. Remember, we're only promised right now, so make the most of it and live it to the best of your ability. We'll see you later, everybody. Take care, sending lots of love your way. Bye-bye.